Today on Trucks, we'll roll Sinister Silverado back into the truck shop to give it a new exhaust system and do a little power tuning. While we're at it, we'll also put some finishing touches on the exterior of our Chevy truck. After that, we'll take you to Phoenix, Arizona for the first annual Truckin' Nationals, before heading back to the shop for some sport truck tire tech. That's all today on Trucks.
Welcome to this week's show, everybody. In the past few weeks, you've seen us turn our stock Silverado into a sinister-looking bow tie with a 6-inch lift and heavy-duty bumpers front and rear. Today, we're going to do some power tuning on our 5.3L Vortec.
Until a few years ago, a new exhaust system always meant a trip to the muffler shop. Well, that all changed with the new catback systems. Now you can bolt on the sound and the look you want in your driveway without any special tools.
The system we're going to use is from Flowmaster and comes complete with the resonator assembly, the muffler, tailpipes and ends, not to mention all the brackets and hardware you'll need to complete the job. And the best part is, this system won't void your warranty.
Of course, we need to lose this stock Chevy system. It unbolts right here at this flange behind the catalytic converters. The system's held in place by these rubber hangers that run all the way back. Now, if you don't have access to a lift like we do, it's a lot easier if you cut the pipe here behind the muffler and take the system out in two pieces. This makes it a lot easier to take this part out here over the axle.
Now that Stace has the stock system removed, I can go ahead and bolt on the resonator assembly. Now, not every kit comes with this piece, but what it's going to do is give us that sound we're after. Once the resonator's in place, we can go ahead and install the muffler.
There we go. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that people make with mufflers is that they let them just dangle there when they're rigging up their hanger system. Now, if you leave this much weight unsupported, you stand a good chance of cracking your exhaust manifolds. So make sure that your muffler is supported either by a hanger or put a floor jack up underneath it.
The mounts for your tailpipes bolt right to the frame using this existing hole. Now you can take the right side tailpipe, run it over the axle and into the muffler. After that, just hang it from the bracket you've already installed.
Now the left side goes in just like the right, except you need to put on this special bracket that supports the weight of the muffler. Now at this point, all the clamps and brackets should still be loose for final adjustments later on.
Now it's time for these slick looking end pipes. The neat thing about these is they're stainless steel so they won't rust, and instead of running straight out the back, these have a 90-degree bend so they'll dump out right behind the back tires.
Once you have everything in place, adjust your pipes and your muffler to where you have at least 3/4 of an inch of clearance around your shocks and your undercarriage. This allows for suspension travel and vibration. And once you have it all where you want it, go ahead and tighten down your clamps. Don't play Hercules on these and over-tighten these bolts, because all you'll do is bend the pipes and that can cause leaks.
Now, we told you before, this system won't void your warranty, but if you install it in such a way that a hot tailpipe comes in contact with a brake line or wiring, you will be on your own. So make sure you wire tie all your lines out of the way and that you have plenty of room for your spare tire if you're running one under here.
Mel, it's time to see what this sounds like.
Let's do it, man. Well, now that we're happy and the EPA's happy, we need to take a break. Don't go away. We got more trucks for you right after this.
Later in the show, we'll take you to Phoenix, Arizona for the first annual Truckin' Nationals. But up next, we need to do some tweaking on the computer, as well as the exterior of Project Sinister Silverado.
Welcome back to the shop, everybody. Now that we have a Flowmaster exhaust system on our Silverado, we thought we'd do some power tuning to it with Hypertech's Power Programmer. About done over there?
Yep, we're clear.
All right. But before we can dive under the hood for some of those little tweaks, we thought we'd change the hood completely.
Let's face it, if we're going to pick up some extra horsepower, might as well grab some extra attention while we're at it. That's why we had Choo Choo Custom send us this brand new Cal induction hood. It's made of hand-laid fiberglass with a fully finished and detailed underside, as well as a 2.5-inch scoop that was molded from a '69 Camaro.
Now the stock hood comes with insulation underneath it, and you can reuse that on the new hood if you want. But we're not going to for a couple reasons. First of all, it's not really that necessary, and second of all, the new hood looks so much better without it. And that's one of the great things about using a place like Choo Choo Customs. They'll custom match your paint, and they'll guarantee the shipping to where you don't end up with a scratched up piece of junk. Also, the hood bolts right to the stock hinges and hood latch, so the fit is perfect.
Oh man, this is one sinister looking hood.
This is cool.
Well, now that we have the hood on, we can dive underneath it and start tweaking the computer. That's where Hypertech comes in with their Power Programmer 3. You know, on these late model motors like our Vortec, there's really not a whole lot you can do and still be legal. So the Power Programmer is about the only way to go if you're looking to squeeze out maximum performance. Hypertech also offers the PowerStat thermostat that'll lower your temperature, and I'll go ahead and install that while Stace plugs into the computer. Here you go, man.
Thank you.
You bet.
Like Mel said, all you have to do is plug the programmer into the data link connector here under the dash, turn on the key, and hit the start button. Now Hypertech says you can get up to 20 horsepower using their program. Well, since we've added a few things to our truck, like a lift kit and bigger tires, not to mention bumpers and a winch, we're going to go ahead and customize our program to fit our application better. First, we're going to select the type of fuel we're using, decide where we want our rev limiter to be, then set our speed limiter so we won't shut down at 90 miles an hour. Then we need to input our tire size, our rear axle ratio, and finally our shift points. Now by customizing your program, you can wring out as much performance and efficiency out of a late model motor as you can get, legally.
Now that we know we're emissions legal in 50 states, we also need to make sure we're cool when it comes to the tire laws. And since you can't have your rubber hanging outside of the fender wells in most states, we're going to put on these fender flares from Bushwhacker. Now they're molded perfectly to fit our Chevy, and they pop right into existing holes in the fender well, so there's no drilling necessary.
Since we're going for a more evil look on our Silverado, these big oversized chrome mirrors just ain't going to get it. That's why we're going to put on these black cowl view mirrors that we got from Street Scene Equipment. Now a lot of times an upgrade like this can be kind of a pain because you got to take the door panel off. That's not the case with our truck. All you have to do is pop off this panel, unplug it, then unbolt the old mirror and pull it out. Now take the new piece and put it right in the factory holes. Then hook up your new wiring harness, put on your old panel, and you've got a much better looking truck.
Yeah, that definitely makes a big difference, but we're not done with this door just yet. These vent visors help reduce wind noise, keep the sun off you, and even allow you to crack the window when it's raining. Installation's a no-brainer. All you have to do is prep the door frame with a supplied alcohol pad. Pull the adhesive strips and stick them in place.
Well, it wasn't too long ago that we rolled this stock Silverado into the truck shop. But as you can see, a lot has changed since then. But one thing's for sure, this thing is now one sinister Silverado. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this.
Up next on Trucks, we're going to one of the hottest West Coast trucking events of the last millennium.
Welcome back, everybody. You know, a few months ago, Truckin' Magazine invited us to their first annual Truckin' Nationals in Phoenix, Arizona. The idea was simple. Put on a show that anyone who loves trucks could get fired up about.
The result was one of the hottest West Coast truck events of the last millennium. Had almost 25,000 spectators. That's a nice Ford.
Yeah,
Look at that.
That was there. The venue for the first annual Truckin' Nationals was Firebird International Raceway. It boasts an NHRA-sanctioned drag strip along with enough acreage to please truck enthusiasts of all kinds. And believe us, they had all kinds at this two-day event, as more than 400 trucks of all shapes and sizes were launched, spit, shined, and shown, then hammered on the rocks. The biggest draw of the weekend was on the drag strip, where an army of weekend warriors took their shot at turning the fastest reaction times and quickest ETs in everything from bone stock light trucks to modified drag trucks. But without a doubt, the most amazing sight was Roger Renfro in his lifted Toyota. Much to say his burnout caught our attention, his launch in ET guaranteed at least 15 seconds of fame.
To lead that hard and to carry the wheel as far as it did, it was a rush. I mean, I've never had that feeling before. I've had this truck for 7 years, and it's never done what it's done today. Especially in the temperature, I thought for sure I was going to run a lot slower and do 11:17, and not even be a good pass. It's in the tent. I would think the motor and the nitrous on 225, I would think it'd be making probably about 675 horse, and it's got the potential to go a way lot bigger than that.
Of course, the Yoda's performance on the quarter mile was more than impressive, but when the sun set in the desert on Saturday evening, there was no need to flick on the track lights. Instead, it was time to grab a set of earplugs and check out the fireworks.
It's like another day in the office. I mean, you get in it, you fire it up, you do your show, you do your run, you come back. I mean, I enjoy the acceleration and the burner pops and the making the truck rock and the smoke and all that. And that's, it's fun. Like I said, it's just entertaining the people. That's what I get the thrill out of, is making sure they had a good time and they enjoyed it.
So are you trying to convince the viewer that this is nothing more than a cup of coffee and the sports page and a trip to the office with a computer?
Well, this is my office. I mean, this is what I do.
Okay, Michael, a Dodge Dakota jet truck we can understand, but a 37 Chevy school bus? What the heck's that all about?
Well, somebody asked me if this was a lot like driving a barn door, and I said, no, not at all. It's like driving the whole barn.
I wouldn't say you'd be considered your average normal guy getting in a school bus with a jet motor. What kind of a person really does this?
Well, what kind of a person jumps out of a good airplane?
Just for fun, right?
All depends on what winds your clock. I mean, look at bungee jumping. You want to tie a rubber band around your waist and jump off a cliff? I don't.
You're sitting next to an engine that's designed to run for a couple thousand hours at 100% power. I can't say that for a top fuel motor. I wouldn't sit next to one of those, but I feel very comfortable with this.
Don't get the wrong idea here. This event was more than just hanging around a drag strip. On Sunday afternoon, a group of hardcore rock crawlers found their way to the pit, then tried to find their way through a nasty maze of logs, tires, and rocks. And if that wasn't brutal enough, they also had to beat the clock. Bottom line, as far as we can tell, this show should continue to shine for years to come. Thanks to the folks at McMullen Argus who know how to put on one smoking event.
If you want more trucks, check us out online at truckstv.com.
Thanks for staying with us. Now, there's no doubt nothing quite sets the attitude of your truck like the right set of wheels and tires. Now, last week we took you off the pavement with some tips on off-road tires. This week, we're going to give you some tips on how to pick the right fit for a street truck.
You know, picking the right combination for your truck can be a lot like choosing a spouse. And while Stace and I got real lucky in that area, we do know that if you choose the wrong one, you're going to suffer for a long time. Now, we can't help you with choosing that spouse, but hopefully we can shed some light on what can be a very confusing subject.
Now, the trick has always been to run the biggest, fattest tires that you possibly can without slicing them up on the fender. Now, on the rear, you need to measure the width of the fender well if you want the tire to tuck up inside. Then subtract at least a ½ inch from either side of the measurement, and this will give you the widest tire you can possibly run. Just keep in mind, a ½ inch of clearance on either side of the tire is cutting it real close.
For most people, to get the look and the stance they're after in the front, they usually go with a tire that's not quite as tall and a little more narrow. Of course, this is an extreme example on our Harry hauler, but the concept's the same. You need to make sure you're not going to have any rubbing on your suspension pieces or brake calipers, and you always have to have plenty of room for your fenders.
Now, backspacing is where a lot of people tend to screw up, and it's easy to do when you're trying to stick as much rubber as you can into the wheel wells. A good rule of thumb is to measure from the hub face to the inner fender and then subtract at least an inch. You should never go any tighter than that. As you can see on our Sport Sierra, the maximum backspacing is about 8 inches.
While we're on the subject of wheels, we know a lot of you guys out there are finding some great deals on them used, but you need to know how to measure them for backspacing and lug pattern. Now, to get your backspacing, lay a straight edge across the wheel and measure from the mounting surface to the edge. The backspacing on this wheel is 5½ inches. For an even numbered lug pattern, measure from the center of one hole to the center of the opposite hole. Now, on an odd numbered lug pattern, measure from the outside of one hole to the center of the opposite hole.
Now, one of the hottest trends out there is to use a larger diameter rim and a lower profile tire, but still keep the same height as stock. Now, this is what is known as plus sizing. Let's say you have a P245 65 R16 tire and you want to go to a 17-inch rim. In that case, you need to go to a P255 55 R17. Now, what that gives you is a 1-inch taller rim while lowering the sidewall of the tire. Now, this example would be a +1 size. You can get +2 or 3 sizes using the same formula.
Now, don't kid yourself. This is only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to changing the attitude of your truck with the right wheel and tire combination. But hopefully, this gives you a good idea about where to start.
Now, we've all seen show trucks that have chrome everywhere. But before you go nuts at the plater, here's something to think about. The chroming process causes a phenomenon called hydrogen embrittlement. And like the name suggests, the metal gets brittle and it can crack if it's under stress. Now, there are methods of heat treatment that can lessen the chance of this, but the best rule of thumb is, for anything that's under stress, like suspension pieces, use stainless steel like we did here, or paint the parts. Don't have them plated.
Everybody knows that Jeep was the first production off-road vehicle. But our question is, what came next? The Ford Bronco or the International Scout? We'll have the answer for you later in the show. So what did come first, the Scout or the Bronco? Well, in 1961, the International Scout 80 was introduced to the public. 5 years later, Ford unleashed the Bronco.
And now truck gear, parts, tools, and equipment for pickups and sport utilities.
Everybody knows there's nothing worse than overheating, and that can be a major problem on the trail or the street. Royal Purple has come out with this brand new additive called Purple Ice that pours right into your radiator and not only allows the coolant to transfer heat more efficiently, but also lubricates your water pump. Royal Purple also claims it will reduce your operating temperature by as much as 20 degrees. Keep things cool with a bottle of Purple Ice for about 10 bucks.
If you're working on an early model truck, well, the grill is what gives it its personality. And since these don't just grow on trees, you usually have to have one custom made. Well, here's what we sent HER Grills in Houston, Texas. What we got back was this custom stainless steel insert. Pretty much speaks for itself. Now, these guys can literally make a grill for any application. All you have to do is send them some measurements. The best part is HER Grills start at about 200 bucks. That's going to do it for Truck Gear. Here's a look at next week's show.
The guys have already dropped their 66 Ford 3 inches all the way around. Next week, they'll take care of the backside of their classic blue oval with a bed liner, tonneau cover, and roll pan. After that, they'll take you for a ride in the all-new Dakota Quad Cab. Then it's back to the shop to show you how to port and polish your heads. That's all next week on Trucks.
Well, that's going to do it for this week's show. We appreciate you hanging out with us.
Yeah, we got more trucks rolling at you next week.
It's hood, man.
This thing is done.
Fine.
Trucks is an RTM production.